So today I'm going to show you guys a bit about the Schwank radiant heater. This is the model here. So it's just a screw that holds the top in, folds down. They're okay radiant heater. They're very annoying to install, as the shields are a horrible design and very time consuming. So one of the things when I do a service on these guys, the first things I like to start with is I grab a brush, I brush it all out. There's nothing worse than a unit that gets 5, 10, 20 years old and you open it up and it's a big dust ball and you can't read any of the labels and it's just a nightmare. I'd suggest always do it. Next, before I turned it off, I checked for a code. It's a thing you should do before you turn off any unit at all times, just because it's a good practice to get into. So on these Schwanks, the flame sensor and igniter is actually mounted in the side of the tube here. So I already disconnected it. It's actually an electrode, so there's just the one wire going to it. And it senses flame and it ignites. And this is what it looks like. You can tell I already cleaned it up. Use sandcloth, but you gotta make sure you wear the sandcloth down a bit because it has some silicone on it and you don't want that to get stuck on the steel where you're trying to sense. So I cleaned that up. So I'll install that shortly. The next thing I usually like to do is I check my inlet gas pressure, and you can find out what your inlet gas pressure should be on the manual here. And you can see natural gas, propane, minimum, maximum, so that's your inlet. This is actually a propane system, like this is a tent. So we need between 11 and 14. And you'll want to turn the gas off first. And we'll hook our manometer up here to the in port, and we want between 11 and 14 standing. And also when the unit's running, you gotta stay between 11 and 14. And if you drop below that while running, you usually need to increase your rag a little bit. And then next, you'll see is manifold pressure, which is right here. And we'll do propane again, so 10 inches. Something to also note is I'm at 3,300 feet elevation, so usually you have to derate them once you go over 2,000 feet. So I'll check the manual to see. Usually derate it to about, for propane, is 9 inches at our altitude. And then after I put it back in, you unthread this guy here, hook your manometer up, and we're gonna be looking for, it says 10, but most likely 9 when I double check. Step 2, we also, when we're running it, we want to listen to our motor, take an amp draw, see how it's running. It's very important to do because this motor, when I heard it running when I first came up, kind of had a bit of a knock sound, so we're going to want to replace that. This is just a quick service, so I'm not going to bother verifying pressure switches. As long as they close, I'm going to be happy today. Listen for our relay. These things are just pieces of crap and they tend to buzz a lot. Usually a sign of a weak coil. And then once we've been running for a while, I'll be driving the lift over here, and this is called the transition tube. It is the most common tube to get a crack. And usually I find that cracks are either right at the bottom where the seam is, because moisture ends up building up there and that's one of the most common. Or the harder one to see is up top here, because the heat gets so hot with that shield there, it just can't reject and it gets quite superheated. So I usually go in there and check the first tube and quickly the rest of the tubes, just a quick look. If the crack is usually pretty bad, you'll see the whole shield or below it kind of grows red because the flame shoots out. So yeah, and this site's kind of nice. It's a shop, so they have the ducted intake. It goes right outside to prevent pulling in any contaminated gases into it before it combusts, as you can have some big problems. And also, as you notice, you can see this big flex line here. We installed those on all radiants, and you should see them on all radiant heaters, because as you know, when these tubes warm up, steel expands. So if you don't have a hose or some kind of flex connector, when it expands, the unit is going to push back a little bit, and if it can't flex and adjust, then you could damage your gas line. As you see, if you hard piped it and it goes to flex, as the steel expands, that's going to be a big issue. You can see this other unit heater over here kind of has a flex hose too. These ones are kind of shunned upon in, I would say, our trade, as we like to go with the high pressure hoses. That's my choice. So yeah, that's just the basic how to service and look at a Schwank radiant heater. Any questions, you know how to contact me. Thanks.